Some people in the comments have been asking how I remember things from so far back. Well, I kept hand histories. If you're talking about hands, I kept hand histories my own, didn't have software, keep track of them like people do when they play online. I would just play hands, I would jot down a few things on paper sometimes, in my phone sometimes, and then later when I got home I would just type it all into a Word document, which was good practice because I would think about the hand while I played it, I would think about it afterwards while I was still playing the session, I would think about it on the drive home, and then I would think about it while I was typing it into my Word document. So got a lot of practice and a lot of study in that way. But how did I get from playing the hand to typing it all into a Word document? Well, there's a lot of shorthand, and I'll go over all the abbreviations. Not that I think I came up with any of them originally. I'll go over all those in a minute. Sometimes I would write down the entire hand, and then there was nothing to it. I couldn't forget. Sometimes I would just write down my starting hand. Like I would just write down King Queen, and then hours later when I got home, I would see the King Queen, and it would all come back to me. Oh yeah, I raised, and all this happened the rest of the hand. There were only 2 times. I have years of original hand histories like this. Only 2 times did I write down just the starting hand, and then when I got home later I had no idea what it was. I remember once it was King Jack. I had a little piece of paper in my wallet. I wrote down King Jack, nothing else, and when I got home I didn't remember playing King Jack all night. And one other time that happened. So most of the time it was good. Of course the entire hand history is a lot better, but here is all of the shorthand, all the abbreviations I've used. First we have some positions. UTG stands for under the gun, first player to act. Second player to act, UTG +1, that's pretty specific. Middle position, not nearly as specific, somewhere in the middle. LP, late position, also if you don't need to be that specific. If you do really need to be specific, hijack is 2 spots off the button. We also have cutoff, which is 1 spot off the button. If you're the button, sometimes I like to type BTN for button. Sometimes with the sentence I was typing OTB on the button made a little more sense. It had a little better flow to it. SB, of course, small blind, and BB is the big blind. So in addition to these positions, there's also some abbreviations for streets. Pre-flop, of course. OTF, on the flop, acronym. OTT, on the turn, same acronym. And OTR, on the river. Last thing is actions. A lot of actions there could be. So CC, check call. C for check, C for call. CF is check fold. CR is check raise. I did away with the slash if there was ever a check raise all in, CRAI. Bet fold, B/C is bet call, B/3B is bet 3-bet, so someone bet, got raised, it got back to that player who bet originally, and that player put in a 3-bet. IP is in position, OOP out of position, HU, of course, heads up, and if anyone checked, I could do any of these 3. X, men check, CK, men check, CHK, also men check. Sometimes I did one, sometimes I did the other 2. So nothing special, I didn't come up with any of it, but that's what I used. That's what people used on the internet back in the day when I was keeping track of my own hands. This was like 2013 through 2017 mainly. That was the shorthand I used, and I would type it into my phone, sometimes write it down on a little piece of paper, and you know, it all makes sense, it's all intuitive for the most part. Everything makes sense to me, so that's what I used, and that's how I kept track of my hands, and that's how I have years worth of original hand histories in PDF files right now. So sometimes I would just write down the starting hand, ace king, that's it, and I would remember later. Sometimes it would be a full hand history and it would look something like this. Limps pre-flop, S, some amount of limps, you know, at least 2. CK, check. BB, big blind. Queen jack with little C's, the C's are for clubs. I check in the big blind with queen jack of clubs, and we went 4-way to the flop. Only need to write down the board once, you know, don't have to do it flop, turn, and river, just the board 1 time, and then I could get to the action. OTF, on the flop, I bet 10, don't need a $sign, call, and heads up out of position. So the call came from behind me because I'm out of position, my opponent is in position. OTT, on the turn, that acronym, I check, CK, 20, there's a bet of 20 behind me. ICR, I check raise to 65, bet 3-bet, B/3B, the better 3-bet after I check raised to 165, and I called. On the river, OTR, that acronym, I, I'm all in. I bet all in, and I got the call behind me, and that's it. And if you're wondering, that was actually a hand I played back in 2014 at Aria, doubled up, hit my card on the river. The turn actually had a lot more thought to it than it might seem. Seems like just a maniac doing some weird things. That check raise, I thought was a great play. Didn't expect to get 3-bet. Would not have raised if I thought my opponent had the nuts on the flop. So didn't expect to get 3-bet, but I did. But I was priced in to chase the draw. I had a lot of outs, and I hit on the river. So there are the abbreviations and the shorthand I used, sometimes on my phone, sometimes pen and paper, to keep track of all my hand histories in the past.
Yeah, I got it at the stadium.